Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Wolverine Beat. Nick Baumgardner here from MLive headquarters in Ann Arbor, along with Brendan Quinn. Back for the July edition of the sort of conversational video, what podcast we're calling this? Something like that?
A video podcast?
Just video chat?
There was some spitback on that one.
Yeah, people said that didn't exist, I was told. But
people didn't.
I feel like that does sort of exist in some capacity.
I think people don't know what it is we're going for, which we don't either, so that's that's fun. And
we're just talking.
People. And the other thing is, people had complained about the background, that it looked like we were in an empty room. So we moved it over here. So hopefully there'll be some people walking around this time. Trust us, it's not a big empty warehouse of a newsroom. Those do exist, but there are actually people here.
Right. So this will be the last summer one, I guess, and then maybe.
Well, by this time,
next month we'll start.
It'll be
we can maybe even
a week into football practice.
Yeah, once we get going. So yeah, football practice starts. For those who don't know, I believe it's August 7th.
Camp opens on the 7th.
Opens on the 7th, and I think fan day is the 6th. So that's what 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Sounds right.
Somewhere in there. So it's coming up. It's coming up. Summer's almost over for you football fans and for us, which is always a sad and exciting.
The next time you see Nick, it won't be quite this endearing disposition.
Right, exactly.
Maybe you have a little tan too from being out there.
No, we'll be all inside. They don't let us go outside.
Right, that's right.
Obviously, we'll stay inside.
So when people ask us about what we saw in practice,
the museum,
be ready for a non-answer.
Right. So we've got a couple topics today to talk about, I guess. Over the last month, there's been a handful of things have happened. It's been a faster or a busier summer as far as off seasons go than anything I can ever remember in terms of football. Just because Jim Harbaugh was doing something, it seemed like every day.
Right.
And the department was doing something too with the Nike contract that finally wrapped up last week. I guess it finally, well, 2 weeks ago really, but they got the details last week. Brendan, I was on vacation last week. You covered the whole thing and got all the details. Just sort of walk us through or discuss, I guess, kind of how it went down and what we have.
Well, I think the big takeaway, and I won't retell the story. Everyone, people who care about this thing already know basically how it all went down. But I think the biggest setback. I wasn't surprised by $100 million. I was surprised by $169 million.
15 years surprised me.
15 years. Yeah. I think that's the trend from what I've been led to understand, that in these bigger deals that are being put together nowadays, these companies are looking for 8 to 15 year commitments. And obviously it's only assured to be an 11-year deal. Then there is the option, a 4-year option on top of it. 169 million was a staggering number. I'll be most curious when Texas comes up. Their deal is going to be on the table right now.
Under Armour apparently reportedly offered them just like
they're ready to back up the truck. So I think we'll have a better right now. Right now, 15 years, 169
That's
million.
the market,
right? And
Michigan reset it.
Where Michigan sits in the market in terms of how far above everyone, or even in line with Texas, you'll have a better idea when Texas makes its deal.
I think they'll still be number one or number two because I think Michigan's brand is number one or number two for
Notre Dame's reported $90 million deal wasn't long ago.
No, I mean
it was only a year ago.
And that was Michigan had been number one with Adidas per their own contract for 6-7 years, and before that they were right towards the top with Nike because I mean they've just look. You wrote the story a couple weeks ago. Michigan was the first school in America to do this. They were the first athletic department to have.
Well, there was Florida State, North Carolina. We're in the year, right?
A handful of schools. So in terms of brand recognition, I mean Jim Hackett, maybe he's stretching a little bit when he says it's the top brand in all of sports or whatever. I don't know if I believe that, but in college sports, I think just by looking at it, it's one of the more recognizable things out there. So I would think that they'd be toward the top, even with Texas, and even with Ohio State's going to get more money from Nike, I would assume.
I think there will still be a healthy gap.
But there'll be a big gap. They're not going to get Michigan money.
Yep.
No way.
Yep.
And I mean, you look at Michigan State. I believe just signed a new thing last year. I think I saw for 10 years, 30 million.
34,
crying out loud.
Like that.
I mean, the gap there is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I mean, Michigan's brand appeal. They were basically just saying, we can have whatever we want here in these negotiations. I mean, these negotiations weren't even negotiations. From what we could gather, it was these three companies just giving everything they could to reel them in. So I mean, they were in the most advantageous position possible. Everyone around Michigan wanted Nike. Jim Hackett had said Jim Harbaugh told him he wanted Nike the second day he was here, which then kickstarted the whole, okay, let's figure out a way to get Nike and see how much money we can get from them. So do I want to, was it a masterful job to get this? I don't. I mean, I think it was just basically get as much as you possibly can, and make sure you get it from the team, or make sure you get it from the group you want.
I'd still be beyond curious to see what the Adidas and Under Armour deals.
It might have been more. I mean, I saw that it was reported that it was more. That wouldn't surprise me.
ESPN reported it was more. We did file a Freedom of Information Act to see if there was an actual contract and put in front of Michigan with numbers from Adidas and Under Armour. Got back that does not exist, so it was probably a verbal thing, either that or
that was probably more. I mean, that's Adidas, and that's what those two do. I mean, they've got to pay more than Nike. That's what they're.
But how high could it have been is kind of that's kind of a crazy thought when you think of it already being worth over $10 million a year in just straight cash and merchandise. And when you go back, I was in that Regents meeting when Jim Hackett had to get up there and say that that the athletic department was projecting to finish in the red for a year.
That's a big bump too.
And they just got a check cut to them for $2 million from Nike, so that the debt problem is solved right off the bat. And I think this really kind of kickstarts things in terms of the overall financial security of the athletic department, which I would have to say has probably been beyond fixing football, Hackett's #1 responsibility walking in the door.
Yeah, it gives you more stability. I mean, it gives you a longer term. You know that you're going to get this kind of money every year, which is not everybody has. I mean, nobody has this kind of obviously #1 contract in the country, but very few schools could even come close to this. So it's
Michigan's deal with Nike is worth more than the endowment of the college that I went to.
Exactly. So I mean, it's just it's a fortune. I mean, it's crazy money in terms of what it does outside of dollars and cents. I get a lot of questions about that. I hear these players say that they play better. I don't buy any of that. I mean, the recruits like Nike. That's why Jim Harbaugh wanted Nike as their apparel deal. Recruits do. They like Nike. They do these surveys all the time, and it always comes back Nike. Basketball might be a little bit different because AAU is Adidas and Nike, and even Under Armour now. But the fact that they're wearing these Jordan brand uniforms, maybe that gives them an advantage. I don't know if it gives them much of an advantage in basketball. Maybe it does, but I think it does in football recruiting.
Well, the
basketball, I don't know. It's
schools
trickier.
that have the full Jordan, and there's a difference.
There's only a handful.
There's any program can pay to wear the Jordan brand uniforms.
Yeah, but
if they have a deal with Nike. Yeah. Not everyone has the actual when you're outfitted by Jordan brand.
Right.
The only programs will be Michigan starting next year, Marquette, Georgetown, and obviously North Carolina.
Yeah. So
that's a thing,
it's
people
a thing,
care.
Sure. I just feel like the shoe stuff with the AAU. I mean, there is a lot of Adidas kids, Under Armour kids in football. There are no Adidas kids and no Under Armour kids. Right. So if it's a recruiting chip you want, then you got it. Whatever. That's done with. Moving on. The other interesting part about that was Jim Hackett. We talked with him for about an hour about a lot of different stuff. And I guess the main takeaway is that he is sort of still operating. He's absolutely still operating as an interim because he wants to. That's as clean as I can cut it, because he wants to. He doesn't know if he wants to be here long term, and I don't think he does. Long term, what does that mean? I don't know. He's still working on projects. It's basically been a project-to-project thing, and he's delegated all the day-to-day responsibilities to 3 or 4 or 5 other people. And that's how the department's operating. How long that can last, I don't know. And I asked him that question, and he sort of acted like he thought it could last as long as he wants it to last. But my question would be is, if any sort of crisis happens or anything else, you have a leader, but he's almost admitted that he's not here on the ground every day. And so you've got a lot of cooks in the kitchen there. I mean, right now everything seems to be fine on the outside, but how long can that last? I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting question.
There's a number of things, because when you talk about solving projects, well, how many projects do you want there's
a lot of stability that needs
to oversee. For instance, if there wanted to be a new athletics capital campaign, a new fundraising athletics capital campaign, is that something that an interim should be spearheading in the beginning of and then handing off, or would you want?
It's the finalization of a bunch of other projects.
I understand that,
it is.
But in terms of new construction, in terms of future capital campaigns, in terms of hiring, if there's any other coaching changes in your Olympic sports, things like that, if I were in an athletic department, I would want a firm, stable AD who's going to be here for 15, 20 years.
I mean, I would want to know.
Ideally,
I would want to know.
Making those decisions.
If I'm a coach at any sport,
yeah,
basketball, football, whatever, I would like to know. I mean, but that's not. I'm not them.
It's different.
I don't know.
Jim Harbaugh's different.
Yeah, he is different.
You go out and hire him. You go out and hire a baseball coach or a gymnastics coach.
If I'm John Beilein, I'd like to know.
I would think so.
I would really want to know. I mean,
Beilein's a little bit different because he's 62.
Yeah, but I would still want to know who the guy is.
Sure.
Who's going to be?
Sure.
You know, if I have a question, who do I go to? And maybe it's different for every person. I don't know, but it just seems like it's a very unique situation they have. How long it lasts, who knows? And I feel like it's basically Jim Hackett seems to have a decent relationship with Mark Schlissel. They have an understanding of this is going to continue as long as I guess Jim Hackett decides that it should continue. Because there hasn't been too many complaints about anything he's done so far.
Good.
On the outside. I mean, they hired Jim Harbaugh. They haven't had any meltdowns.
All right.
They got a crap load of money from Nike. That was pretty good, I guess, for them. But, you know, we'll see how it goes.
And then who hires the next AD?
I don't know.
Is that a...
Usually that's a presidential thing with a firm.
Do they create a search committee that's led by Hackett and involves other people in the athletic department?
I also have the, I just don't think Mark Schlissel wants to do it. I think part of it is in his own way from what we've seen, and his interest in athletics just isn't. It's not what Mary Sue Coleman's was. I mean, she was very interested in it, and she took a big stake in it. He just seems to be maybe I'm wrong, but he seems to be in the opposite end of it. To being, I just want somebody who takes care of it, so I don't have any of it come.
I think that's how it should be. When you look at the University of Michigan, it's what, a $5 billion a year operation. The medical school is far more important than the athletic department.
Yeah.
I know people don't want to hear that who watch this video, but when it comes down to real dollars and cents, yes, athletics is the front porch of the school.
It's important,
but financially, and in terms of what's really important, it is a sliver of a much bigger picture.
I would say that with football, though, football brings in an insane amount of money.
Right.
The
money going through the medical school is far more than the athletics.
But football still is, in terms of churning money.
It's the front porch. It's the front porch of the school.
So, you know, I mean, we'll see how that goes. But there, you know, other than that, with the Hackett conversation, it was interesting because he just sort of, you know, he's going project to project. Whatever needs to, you know, finalizing the football situation was one. Finalizing this shoe thing was one. They want to finish up all the new construction and everything else that Dave Brandon started, that master plan.
Yep.
And that's another, however long that takes, I don't know. But we still get a lot of those questions. How long is he going to be here? How long is he going to be here?
Yeah.
Basically, as long as he feels like it. And I don't think that this is something he wants to do for 15 years.
And let me touch one more point on this meeting. I was not there. Each media outlet had one representative, and Nick went for us because, you know, he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But there was another administrator in that room.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think a lot of people talk about this situation, but explain to listeners here who the number two is and exactly how this athletic department's going to be run.
Well, I mean, there's a couple number twos, I think. There's a couple. You know, Chrissy Rowick was there, and she's been right next to Jim Hackett in every decision that he's made since. She was very instrumental in the football search. She did a lot of work there. She did a ton of work in the Nike and the shoe deal, and Jim Hackett had said as much, that she was basically she ran the organization of the entire project, and still and all of their unveiling and everything else will be handled, I believe, either by Chrissy or someone else. Was it Rob Rodemaker? Maybe Rob was doing the layout of everything and how it falls out. And then Bob DeCarlos was just hired too to be sort of an executive assistant,
senior advisor.
So there's really 3, maybe 4 people. Kurt Svoboda's in charge of communications now. I think he does a lot more. There's a lot more on his plate. So there's probably 3 or 4 people. And Jim Hackett kind of said it like this: the previous AD, which was Dave Brandon, had a large team under him, and their jobs are all sort of small.
Yeah.
And he had a giant job. Jim Hackett has said his team of trusted advisors, I guess, is smaller, and their jobs are bigger.
Yeah.
So that's how he's always managed, I suppose. That's what he said.
Jim Hackett is not really making day-to-day decisions in that.
I mean, he is and he isn't. I mean, there's certain things I feel like there's, if they decide that he needs to be involved in it, he's involved in it. If not, then he's not. Dave Brandon was making a decision on every little thing. Jim Hackett's not doing that.
Yeah.
And even if Jim Hackett was here for 20 years, this is how it would go. So there's that.
I think a lot of people out there don't really know exactly.
I mean, some probably don't care, but that's we get questions on it. So
you mentioned recruiting, things like that. Going all the way back. I think the last time we talked here,
Yeah, it was like middle of June, early June, right after the satellite camp thing ended.
And since then, that recruiting windfall has continued on. There's been 15 additions to this class for football since the beginning of June. Your take on?
Well, I mean, they have a top 10 class now. I mean, it was before June. They had 4 or 5 commitments. A couple of them were holdovers from Brady Hoke, and it was ranked in like the 40s or 50s. And I think people were a little unsettled. I think for a while there, with they missed on some flips, I guess, at the end of the 15. So I think there were some people that were worried, which was a bit of a rush, but that's fine. But basically, I mean, the satellite camps they worked. I mean, they got 15 kids. They're the number 8 class, I think, on 24/7 as of today. They still have as good a chance of anyone, if not better, to get the number 1 player in the country. Rashawn Gary, who's the consensus number 1 in the country. I saw him compared to Jadeveon Clowney the other day in terms of an impact he can make. So,
who Michigan fans are all well familiar with.
Right, exactly, yeah. So this class, and it's funny because I was asked this a long time ago, right when the 2015 recruiting period started. Where do you think that class will rank? I really don't care where they rank. That's not really a thing. I mean, it's hard to judge that, whatever. I didn't think the 2015 class would rank very high. I thought it would be a rather low thing, but I said I'd be surprised if the 2016 class wasn't a top 5 or right outside of that. And by the time this is over with, it'll be a top 5 class.
Okay.
Or it'll be right around the corner of that, because the month of June, they went and put the boots to everything and just went and got guy after guy after guy. How much more this grows, I don't know. I think they're going to take 25. They're not too worried about the numbers, which means that some kids could be on the way out, which happens, and that's part of the deal. Now, are you going to oversign? There's a question.
Right.
You might. And our fans around here are going to like that. Some of them probably won't.
Right.
Because we all know how people feel about the SEC doing that. Are you oversigning and running off kids that you promised a scholarship to? That's a little different than oversigning knowing that you've got a couple kids that just aren't coming back.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. But, really good month for them recruiting-wise. Just a huge month.
The coaches have been on vacation recently.
Yeah.
Do you think they will come back and immediately start adding to this class? Or is it, okay, fall camp's ready to begin, and then you just hold those spots until signing day?
I think they built the core of their class in the month of June.
And now they wait.
And now they've got, a handful of kids that are going to make their decisions throughout the course of the fall, maybe some late summer kids, and then some might run up to signing day. So I think what you've done here, you're in a pretty advantageous situation because you've built the core of your class, and now you've got a handful of targets who are really, really good players who you've recruited since day 1, but you knew they had a longer timeline. Now you can spend all your time on them. You don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to worry about, well, we need another this or another that or whatever. No, there's 6, 7, 8, whatever, how many kids. We can go name by name, but that's, most people who are watching this probably know the names. You can spend all your time really throwing everything you got at these kids for the next, from here until February. So I think it's a pretty advantageous spot. I think they'll have a very good class either way, even if it's top 10. I mean, that's pretty good. So, good month of June for them, and a good, really a crazy month of June because I'd never seen anything like it. I think 14 commitments in 1 month. I don't think I would be willing to bet Michigan's never had that in the online recruiting era, so to speak. So, pretty big month for them.
And you know more about football recruiting than I do. You want to have a couple spots at the week of signing day, just because things get crazy.
You do, but at the same time, it's one of those things too where they're also in a spot where they've got guys. They're not going to say no to many of these guys that they're going after now, and that's 6, 7 guys, maybe more.
Right.
So I mean, if you're at 26 players on February 2nd and Rashawn Gary says I'm coming to your school, then you're like, okay,
sure.
You're not telling them no,
right?
And that's sort of the situation with a lot of these players. If they say they're coming, you figure it out, and that's where they're at, and it's funny because we've heard for years and years, well, you can't do that. You can't do that. There's a certain part of oversigning, and then if you're taking kids, and you're taking 25 kids, and you're taking 28 kids, and then on February 1st you're telling 3 of those kids they don't have a spot anymore. That's ridiculous. That's the bad, but if you're taking 28 kids knowing that you've got 3 or 4 of them that just aren't on your team right now that aren't coming back.
Because on the basketball side, if I were a coach, whereas people, you want to fill up that 13 class and get it 13 players, in each year, and you want to have it diagrammed out that they're all broken down. Well, if I'm a coach nowadays, I almost always want to have 2 in my back pocket
Yeah.
going into every off season, just
Yeah.
because there's been 720 transfers this year.
And
how
the football transfers are bumping up too.
And
I mean,
how
it's
many of
become a
those,
big thing.
those schools that do have a couple spots? A guy, perfect example, Austin Nichols comes available from Memphis. Austin Nichols is a guy who might be an All-American when he's eligible in 2 years. He could be a first or second team All-American. He's really good.
Yeah.
And there were only a group of schools who
Yeah, I mean, you
can
just don't have
take him
room.
on, because you got to have him next year.
Yeah.
He's on scholarship next year
well,
wherever he
sits out.
goes. And now it's looking like Virginia, a couple other places are the ones after him. But some of the talent that comes available every year is just, it spins your head. I mean, they're left and right. You look at some of the guys early in this period. The guy from Cornell would have looked great. If he ended up here as a fifth-year guy. So you want to have those spots, and filling up classes, I think now is almost like irresponsible.
Yeah, and it's just you've got to find I mean, as long as you're not being shady about it, then it's fine. If you're going to gray shirt somebody, then you should tell the kid when he takes the commitment that you're going to be gray shirted.
Yes.
If you're telling a kid on February 9th that he's going to take gray shirt, that's garbage. And that's where people get upset, because if you're deceiving kids, then that's a problem. If you're upfront and saying, I'm going to take your commitment, but you're going to gray shirt, and I'm saying this in June, I don't have a problem with that, because you're telling the kid. And if that kid wants to do that, then that's that kid's decision. But if you're telling the kid that, and 3 days after he got his letter, that's a bit of a problem. Or if you're telling a kid on January 28th, I don't have room for you anymore, that's a problem. Or if some kid says on January 15th, I haven't heard from them since August, that's a problem. So we'll see how all this goes.
The dude who could have gone to CMU and played as a freshman is now coming in here and
we'll see how this goes. We'll see how they handle it. They've got they might have some interesting issues that they might have to tackle, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But that'll be a full class, and right now they don't really have the room on the books right now for a full class. They'll have to crunch the numbers and figure out a way to do it. Other basketball, the one speaking of recruiting, I guess the one basketball thing, Tyus Battle officially gone from Michigan on to Syracuse, which was no surprise.
I think this is now official.
He committed, didn't he?
He committed.
Yeah. Well, you think this is over?
I didn't expect him to commit to Michigan in the first place. I certainly didn't expect him to decommit to Michigan, and
to Syracuse.
Now at this point, it's not shocking he landed at Syracuse. I mean, the thing that it comes down to with Tyus, it seems at this point everyone likes to cite the family and point fingers at his mother and father. I don't really. I try to avoid that because I'm not in the living room with the family. It is a shorter distance. It's a 4-hour drive from Medicine.
He said it.
He said distance. It's a 4-hour drive from Medicine, New Jersey, to Syracuse, New York. It's a 9-hour drive to Ann Arbor, or it's a $400 flight.
Right.
I think he did want to be closer to home. I think he did reconsider a lot about the Michigan offer. I think how Michigan's 2016 class currently looks
who he'd be playing with
played a part. The fact that John Teskey and Austin Davis are not, big time 4 or 5-star top 150 kids, all that. I think all of it played a part in the original decommitment and him landing at Syracuse. Everyone points to Syracuse's troubles with the NCAA, with Boeheim stepping down. Well, they already know who the coach is going to be, and they already know who those players are going to be who are going to be playing alongside Tyus Battle. And guess what? Having 9 scholarship guys who are really good makes no difference than having 12 scholarship guys.
The one thing I didn't understand...
Talked to Duke last year, which basically used 6 scholarship players and won the national title. Syracuse is going to be fine.
Well, one thing I didn't get about that particular situation was you're leaving this offense, which I thought he was a really good fit with, to go to a team that doesn't run an offense.
Well, yeah, I think
they don't do any. I mean, their offense is like appalling every single year. So, to me, it had to have been a distance thing with mom and dad. There couldn't have been any, unless somebody's doing some shady backdoor stuff, and I'm not going to insinuate that. But it had to have been, I got to be closer to my family.
And I mean, at the same time, look, Syracuse can also point to a number of point guards who went there and were highly successful and were lottery picks.
A lot of money,
Scoop Jardine, Michael Carter-Williams
didn't really do anything after
Doesn't
that,
matter.
but they got the money.
They got drafted.
Yeah.
And after that, it's in the.
You're right.
It's up to the guy to
Doesn't
make
matter,
it last.
yeah.
You know, talk to Trey Burke right now, who's trying
Oh, yeah.
to go into a contract
Exactly.
year.
Who might not, doesn't know where he's
with
going to play.
a great deal of uncertainty. Look, I mean, he's going to a good program. He's going to go to the national champion. He's going to go to the NCAA tournament. He's going to compete for national championships, regardless of the NCAA stuff. I think he just saw it worked better for him. That's the.
And where does Michigan go from here?
Michigan
Because
fans.
it created a problem for them. It
Look,
really, really did.
There are a number of guys still available for that class. Obviously Winston, obviously Bridges, a number of other guys. Now they're recruiting Mike Bibby's son out in Arizona. There's a number of guys, but yeah, I mean the thing is that the pillar of that class is now gone, and you don't know how many people
all your
are gonna
time
be
on
added.
the one, and it's gone. And you thought you had him, and it's gone.
I wouldn't be surprised if the guys who end up filling out this class that you never even heard of them as of today.
I think so too.
That happens often here. So, look, the thing that kind of I think is the ultimate, the turn of the knife, is the fact that Michigan debunked some stigmas about this program by signing Tyus Battle, that they couldn't get 5-star.
Commitment.
Right, that they got that commitment was that they got a 5-star. They got a kid from North Jersey.
Yeah.
They went way off the grid from where they normally kind of populate, and then they lost it. So
and
now
look,
all those questions are right back.
You have got, and if you want to go and play in the Final Four, you have got to have guys like that on your team. You have to. You have to have a couple of them who, whether they were 5-star recruits or you found a guy and you made him into an NBA player, but you've got to have. It cannot be a hodgepodge of you're not getting there. Hey, I like Zach Novak and Stu Douglas. Those guys were great guys. They were really cool to cover. They were great to me. They're still great to me every time I call them. But you can't go to the Final Four. And if Stu's watching, you got to tell him that this isn't a slight to him, and he knows this. You can't go to the Final Four on the back of Zach Novak and Stu Douglas. You got to have Trey Burke and Tim Hardaway or somebody else like that taking you there.
Yeah.
And that is the ultimate
Look,
thing
you
we're
need
talking about here.
You need
stars.
guys who are stars.
You do.
I don't think 5 stars mean anything.
No, not necessarily.
You know,
no.
you can
Right.
if you can find your Trey Burke, whatever. But when Butler and Wichita State went to the Final Four, well, they had guys who ended up being 5-star prospects who weren't listed originally. We got to rifle through these questions before this thing gets way too long. Nick, this is from Smashmouth is back. Can you rank the offensive position groups in an order that indicates where the most critical area of focus, attention, and improvement needs to be? What's number
that's
one?
Tough, I guess. An area of improvement.
Focus, attention, and improvement.
God, that's because I feel like they're all sort of in one working in concert. I guess the offensive line needs to grow, but I also think the offensive line is probably closer to getting there than these other spots. I think your quarterback and your receivers.
I think I go number
Maybe
1
even-
quarterbacks, number 2 wide receivers.
I'm having a hard, because I think ultimately quarterbacks I think are still number one because
think
you've
you
got
have-
to identify a guy.
You have serviceable running
And-
backs, I think.
You do. No, I think there's talent there. There's
Right.
one guy needs to emerge and take the job.
Hell, Drake Johnson proved that you can
Somebody-
give him the
yeah,
ball
right.
and he can at least be a
The
4 yards per
the
carry
quarterback
guy.
is obviously the thing, and I think that they feel like they have somebody in Jake Rudock who at least they know what they're going to get out of him.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if he's not the starter. I wouldn't be shocked or anything if somebody else outperformed him. I still think you've got to get that seed in order first because your offense starts and stops there. I mean, that's just how football is these days. You don't have a quarterback,
Right.
you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Offensive line, I think it's right there. I think it's close. I think the offensive line will be pretty well improved. The receivers would be the other one I would say that's at the top of that list. In that you have Amar Darboh, and I don't know who else because it's a lot of question marks. Jay Chesson has played spot minutes, here and there, and he's fast and he can do some things, but we haven't seen it. A lot of this on offense is that guy's fast, that guy's athletic, that guy can do some things. Okay, we'll go do it on the field because we haven't seen it from any of you.
Does it really?
So it's really a show me thing at this point. Guys are going to have to go out when the lights are on and do it, and that's
Kind of
that's
doesn't matter between Rudock and Morris if they have no one to throw the ball to. So
Jake Butt can't catch everything. I mean,
exactly. Someone's going to have to prove that they can do it. This one's interesting because I've had this conversation recently. Do you think it will be likely for there to be a change at quarterback during the season? That's from CO Wolverine fan. I'm going to interpret that as Colorado Wolverine fan. Because I wouldn't be surprised if they go into the year saying both of these guys are going to get reps in the first couple of games and then someone has to win the job.
That would surprise me. I would be surprised if they did the whole like you're going to get a series, you're going to get a series. I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe. I mean, but I don't think Harbaugh's ever done that before.
I don't see the harm in it.
I don't think he's ever done that. I don't think that's his thing. I think his style is I pick a guy, and that's the guy, and I'm going to defend him, but until I can't defend him anymore. However, in the past, they have made switches. I mean, at Stanford, they played different players.
Right.
Sometimes it was because of injury, but then sometimes it was, well, this guy's got the hot hand, and we're going to keep him, and then he doesn't have it anymore, and we're going to go back and forth.
Isn't that how Kaepernick became the quarterback in Stanford?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, and that's the classic example. I mean, you're in the middle of a Super Bowl run, you change your quarterbacks in November, whatever it was, and it's basically when he finds a quarterback, that's his guy. He's going to defend that guy until he can't do it anymore.
Right.
And he's not going to make up any excuses about, whatever your play is your play. Jed Fish, on the other hand, has been a little different at his stops, so maybe it's Harbaugh's call ultimately. But I wrote in the story the other day, Jed Fish's last college stop was Miami. The first game he coordinated Miami, Stephen Morris starts at quarterback. The second game, Stephen Morris is on the bench because they lost and he didn't play well. So somebody else comes in. So do I think it's likely? I wouldn't want to say it's likely, but do I think it's possible? Certainly possible. More possible than I ever would have thought with Brady Hoke. Brady Hoke, outside of the last-minute panic when they pulled Devin Gardner, he was never switching a guy. That was not going to happen. I mean, he was so loyal to people, and as we've discussed over and over again, to a fault, it just was never going to happen. If it's something where they've got to make a switch and somebody's ready, yeah, they'll do it. And I think that they'll continue to tinker until they find their guy. And maybe that spills into next year. Yeah. And, you're going to... And that's what happened at Stanford. They tinkered, they poked and prodded and played 3 or 4 different guys, and then Andrew Luck showed up, and all of a sudden, here you go.
I'll be most curious to see if someone wins the job by winning it or wins the job by default.
He's the guy. Yeah.
Last question. This is a comically long name that I'm not going to read this whole thing. I don't look at that.
Oh my.
I'm with the more than 7-win Michigan crowd. Is that realistic? More than 7
More
wins.
than 7 wins.
Realistic.
Yeah, I mean that's realistic. Will it happen? I don't know, but I mean it's realistic to think that they could. They're going to have to really play well, I think, to win 8 or 9 games. Really, really well.
Yeah.
And
I've heard 9 wins. I've heard 10 wins from some people.
10 wins, I don't think that's realistic.
That is unrealistic.
I think 9 wins is you're starting to stretch a little bit, but I think 8's certainly possible. 7 or 8 is where I keep falling on because I just, this was a 5-7 team last year with 5 and 7 players that whether their talent was underutilized, whatever it might be. Basically, at the end of the day, if they have a ton of talent, let's say you have a ton of talent, well, then they were playing with horrible technique and bad habits and all that. That all has to be broken then, and you have to kind of find all that stuff and bring it out of them. So it's a big undertaking. I mean, they're rebuilding a lot of areas on this football team, and that's going to take a little bit of time. So 8 wins is certainly possible, but 9, 10, that's too much. I wouldn't put any money on that.
I think 7's reasonable.
Yeah.
6 is in play.
I think so. I think anything from 6 to 8, maybe 9.
Or 8 would be, you'd call that season a win. All
right,
but
I keep saying though, last thing would be they'll be a better football team on the last day of the season than they were at the first day of the season. And in the past regime, that was never the case. It was always the opposite way. So that's what you want, and I think that's what they'll get. So that'll be it. We went a little long today, but that's fine. We haven't done this in a month. So we'll do this again next month at some point, probably once football practice starts, and then maybe pick up the pace a little bit when the season gets going. So thanks for watching. For Brendan, I'm Nick. We'll talk to you guys later.